it can be seen how Don Sofer's vision of the 60s to develop a thriving residential, retail, and business community has become a reality in the 70s and 80s. Now, the next picture shows a little bit more development. Here's your country club. Here's your country club. And they're still working on the filling and the dredging. And you can see, it may be hard for you to see, but there's 2 towers going up, which is called Coronado. Is anybody familiar with Coronado?
Yeah.
All right.
There.
Okay, so Coronado was, again, a little bit more elevated in price because the views were extraordinary.
Of course.
And the Coronado was built on top of their beautiful townhomes that are on the golf course. So that was like a big thing. That's now, we're like in the early 70s. South Florida developments built upon formerly marshy areas typically experience some degree of settling after construction. To alleviate these settlement prior to construction of the towers, Turnberry utilized a unique technique by borrowing fill from adjacent area sites. The surcharge amount was to be 26 feet. So what they would do is they would bring in all this fill and they would build a mountain, like 26 feet high is basically like a 3-story structure. And that mountain would stay on the site for at least a month. And then it would settle. It would settle into 6 to 12 inches. And then what they did when they built, they changed the way of building. They started with what they call a mat, a floating mat. So like when the buildings move, which they're designed to do, they sway and they're on this mat. So before, they were able to put in pilings, but being that this is marsh, they had to create this primary foundation. So that was basically how they did it, and people always said, well, when are they gonna build it? You can't build up that high. But then they would take away the mountain and start building. Under Sofer's direction, the project has helped the county and state with the donation of large tracts of land needed for area growth. When a costly regional library and fire station were required to accommodate the area's rising tide of people, acreage was donated for the projects. When the William Lehman Causeway required a 30-acre tract to connect Biscayne Boulevard to the beach, Sofer again donated the land. In the end, Aventura would be home to a variety of developments of the 198 acres of commercial zoning, with the most visible would be Aventura's namesake, the addition of 1.2 million square feet Aventura Mall, which opened in 1983. The area, isn't that a coincidence how the bridge opened so that they could get to the mall? No, and now we're gonna have a choo-choo train too. So
Yeah, you're right.
the mall opened, and the area also home to One Turnberry Place, 150,000 square foot office complex, which reflects the developing image of Aventura to a commercial center. That was a very big move, because since so many people who again started in the little apartments, the original little apartments, had now moved down permanently and upgraded to Turnberry, larger apartments and then double apartments, and they moved their children and their businesses here. I had my office in One Turnberry Place, and what you had in that building primarily was, ¿cómo se dice? Dinero? Big time brokerage houses. So that most people had their stockbrokers and banking right there, and it started a trend, because now we're talking about the late 80s. And in the late 80s, you had a tremendous influx of money coming from Latin America, Mexico, and the people moved and bought properties, not only residential, but they also started businesses. And when you have a business, they needed an office. So in today's world, you see all this office being built. And you have to wonder, after the pandemic, so many people weren't even working in offices. Why would they build all these offices? But this is because of this tremendous influx of money and people. And in the end, Aventura would be home to a variety of developments of the 198 acres and the mall, located in a growing business area, but unencumbered by the density of downtown Miami to the south or Fort Lauderdale to the north. Aventura became a prestigious business address. Numerous residential developments dot the landscape, with the sprawling golf courses and country club providing ample green space for the active community. Interstate 95, 1/2 mile to the west, with only 2 hours of traffic.
Yeah, right.
You only go 3 feet, but it takes 2 hours. And significant arterial roads, including Biscayne Boulevard, the William Lehman Causeway, and A1A, provides ample and easy access throughout the area. So, and now that you put away your go-go boots, the most affluent of Aventura's community is the 12-year-old, because this was done in 1992, the 12-year-old Turnberry Isle project, where I met Carol Pumpian with her braces. She was only 16. Bordering the Intracoastal Waterway, Turnberry is home to 4 high-rise towers and a growing townhouse community. More than 5,000 members frequent the Turnberry Isle Yacht and Country Club, which today is a conference area and a resort. So it's much bigger than that. More the facility, including 170. A lot of people don't know this, at the Turnberry Isle Yacht and Racket Club. It includes 117 slip, safe harbor, deep water marine, accommodating boats up to 160 feet in length, including the world famous monkey business. So I don't know if you knew that story with Gary Hart, but the monkey business was Don Sofer's fabulous boat. And he let Gary Hart go to the Bahamas, and that was a huge scandal which changed big time our political landscape in America, because he could have been a good president, we don't know. Aventura is home to young professionals and older retirees. Does anybody know any older retirees?
No, I have no idea.
It is home to affluence and a political activism as strong as in any other region of the county. As Aventura grows as a residential and commercial hub, profiting from increasing land values, the addresses of Aventura and Turnberry Isle are becoming more popular than ever. The next slide, please. This woman who lives at the V, Jan may know her. She somehow got this picture in because her husband had something to do with marketing and promotion. And what you have here is a photograph of buildings. They were sent to London to present the properties to sell to the British. And this is in the 80s. I was sent to London, because I have a lot of friends there, in the 90s when they were building the Point. Coscan built the Point. And they would send people, including models of all the buildings that they were selling, and they would invite people to these fabulous hotels and cocktail parties, and that's how they wrote up a lot of business. When you may or may not know this, but Mystic Point was sold originally at the Jacob Javits Center in New York, because Mystic Point has a brilliant 1,300 square foot corner 2-bedroom split. And the prices originally were so reasonable that the developer in 1988, if you gave a deposit, on the first building, the 300 building, which is only 18 stories, somebody lives in that building. I don't want to mention her name, by the name of Littman, Francine Littman. Oh, is she here? Okay. So, in any event, they would take a deposit, and you would get your apartment. You could pick out any apartment you wanted, and you give a deposit, and they'd come to you and they'd say, you signed an agreement, like the corner apartment, you can have it for anywhere from $136,000 to $154,000. And after a period of 2 weeks, we will let you know the price if you want to move forward, but it'll include 4 years maintenance free. So everything was sold out. And then if you notice Mystic Point, it's the only building that's 18 stories, because they realized they had a gold mine. So the next buildings are all much higher. I think they're all 30 stories.
I have 40 in my building.
You have 40? So that was a tremendous draw. And then they built the temple under the causeway, no more trolls, but Jews. And so that became a very big selling point for Turnberry as well as Mystic Point, because the very religious, as you know, walk to shul on the Sabbath. So that was another wonderful amenity for people that have those needs. So here we are, and the next picture, please. This is the models. This was the original models, and I'm going to pass around photos, if you can't see this, but the original models, they had the screened-in terraces, and it's really cool as a designer to look back. I mean, I was in college at the time, and friends of mine that I went to school with, their parents bought there. My parents bought in Commodore Plaza, which was going to be called Century 21. And the bottom line was they had all these furnishings that we would call today mid-century modern, and they're very retro today. And then there's a picture, which you really can't see, but it was an invitation to come see the models in the open houses. You can go to the next one. Here's the original low-rises, and it's very interesting to me because this is what you see with the terraces, but the inside was catwalks. So when my parents and aunt and uncle came down, my mother and her sister, they didn't buy here. And I asked, why didn't you buy here? And they said, because of the catwalks. We go to the beauty parlor and it's raining, our hair will get wet. So my late father, may rest in peace, he had to come up with more money because they bought in Commodore Plaza. And you can see, this is where the point is. There's nothing, there's just nothing here. Next. So here we are, again, a little mid-70s. And here's your building, Coronado, and here's the golf course, and you see this building here when you drive in, and there's things here that are built, but it's still empty here. It's still all empty here. You don't see any golfers.
No, I'm looking at it, and there are no golf.
No golfers.
Yeah.
Next. Here's more pictures of the models, which, you know, the outline quilted floral couches, sleep sofas with the bar, like on Seinfeld. This is all typical 70s. The furniture, it's just really campy to see all of this revisited.
No plastic covers.
Well, they didn't move in, it was a model. That's the next
And they'll
slide.
keep the plastic covers.
And more pictures of the models.
Wow, look at that. Wow.
And more pictures of the models. And this is really a lot of fun to read this. The next one. And here's the screened-in terrace that, you know, Yeah, they said you have to have it because of the bugs, you know? And then you see, if you could see some of these pictures with the wallpaper, you would scream laughing. Next. And then the little dinettes that they had.
They're adorable.
I remember those.
I had a client that lived in Coronado, and this little L-shaped wall, this couple came from Chicago, and he made me sit in this area. And they had an artist do a mural of the Turnberry Isle Golf Course. And I'm looking and I'm like, I don't have patience for this. What am I looking for? But about maybe an inch big, if you looked real close after he showed me where to look, there was a little golf cart with two midgets waving. He goes, that's us, that's us. And they were moving to Turnberry, but I could never forget that. The next one, please. Again, the models, and if you remember the old swags, because they didn't have the electrical, so they had these old swags. And it's just a hoot. The old fluorescent ceilings in the kitchen, that was like a really big thing in you know, the late 60s, early 70s. Oh, the great lighting, you know, to cook. And I know my mother and my uncle, who's gonna cook? Take the bulbs out. Okay, here we are in 1980. This is phase 3, Turnberry. So what you have here is you have the North Tower and South Tower. And if you look beyond, these are the yacht club apartments. The the causeway would be here. This is still totally empty. And you don't even see the townhomes at Turnberry. Somebody I know very well did the models there. And then Turnberry Towers and the Marina Tower. Where's Gail?
Yeah.
Okay, so Gail, nobody could see her because she's not there yet. But Carol and Gail lived in the Marina Tower, which was going to be here. Next one. And this was my old home, Turnberry Towers. And this became the site of the townhomes at Turnberry, which I was lucky enough to do the models, and wanted to live there because it's a really great site. This side right here is on the water, and then they built like 30 townhomes. And the marina, as you can see, is filled, but you still see absolutely no development here. As you drive into Turnberry, there's nothing here, there's nothing here, because there's two properties, and you don't see the bridge or the causeway. So when people bought Turnberry Towers on the south side of the tower, they had no idea about the bridge. So this part of the building was sold at an amazing high price. And when the building came to be developed, to be closed on, so people could move in, about 40% said no, and they defaulted on their deposits. One of the people that I got my apartment was a very well-known drug dealer by the name of Fargy. And Fargy had bought many units. And when the DEA came in and cleaned up all the drugs and the cocaine back in the 80s, they seized the property. So because I was involved with Turnberry, designing the models and whatever, they told me, if you want a unit, you can get a really good deal. And I was 34, so that was a big deal. But I dealt with the bank because those units went into foreclosure. Then these lower units went to the Bank of New York, because those units faced under the bridge. And there was a syndicate that came in and bought up a lot of units at Turnberry, between Turnberry Towers and what would have been the Marina Tower on the south